Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the upcoming 2024 presidential race is Brett Kingstone. Mr. Kingstone is a high-tech entrepreneur, award-winning real estate developer, inventor, author, and generous philanthropist. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Kingstone.
Welcome back. It's great to be with you again. It's Wednesday, 6:30, and that's my favorite time because I get to spend time talking to you, visiting with you, listening to you, and enjoying your interaction with me and my esteemed guest. Brett Kingstone is joining us today. He's a real superstar. I took him public when he was a little boy, and he's turned out to be a superstar entrepreneur. He's built big businesses. He's given a lot of charity throughout the world. He's a lovely human being, but very aggravating. He never agrees. He never agrees with me on anything. So it should be an exciting session, and we're going to discuss some very interesting subjects. Is Joe, where's the front page? It's about the upcoming 2024 presidential race. We thought that was topical and something that you have opinions about and you should be interested in, even though it's still more than a year away. So let me put my glasses on and see the topic as we're going to discuss it. First of all, the two-party system. 60% of Americans don't want Trump to be the Republican nominee, and 70% of Americans don't want Biden to be the Democratic nominee. That's really says a lot about our choices. But I will come.
I want you, Morty. I want to vote for you. I think you should be president. You'll straighten out this mess.
Yeah. I want to run away, not I don't want to run. Anyway, what it points out is we don't have a great choice based on this poll, because 60% of Americans don't want Trump and 70% don't want Biden for various different reasons. But one of the things that this points up very strongly is the fact that people in this country don't vote for a person, they vote against the person. In other words, they'll choose the least objectionable person that's running, because we don't get to choose. Even in the primaries, our choices are somewhat limited, because right now it looks like Trump has a lock on the Republican nomination, and Biden seems to be certainly the front runner for the Democratic nomination. So we have to choose in our country between the two of them. So it's the question is, which one do you find least objectionable or most lovable? If you do, you might be among the 40% of Americans who do not object or do not that say
That object
they
to
don't,
Trump and the 30% that do not object to Biden.
right.
Which one are you, Morty? Tell us. Who are you for?
Right now, I have to be for. I find Biden far less objectionable than Trump, even though Trump was a good friend of mine years ago,
I remember.
and I liked him a lot, but he's changed dramatically,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like the way he's changed. So,
So, Morty, have I changed over the 30 years you've known me?
you know, you're the same. You're the same
I'm
lovely,
as good as ever, right?
same lovely human being, and same genius in business, entrepreneurial. And
This is going to be an
entrepreneurial.
interesting discussion, Morty, because I'm for Trump and you're for Biden, but I'll let you lead the way on this, all right?
Well, I don't know how you can be for Trump when yesterday there was an article that described his objectives if he gets reelected.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the first thing he said he's going to do is put the whole Biden family in jail.
Well, I think that's where he should be, actually. Given what Hunter Biden's done and the tens of millions of dollars of bribes he's distributed throughout the family.
Well, we don't know.
If you and I did what
we
Hunter
don't-
and Joe Biden did, we'd be in jail.
We don't know. We don't know any of that.
Oh, we
That's-
do. We have bank accounts now, Morty. We have bank accounts. There
We don't
are
have-
records.
We don't have anything because if we had anything, it would come out. Nothing stays secret.
It is out.
N-
Bank account records
Let's show me
have
one.
already been published.
Show me,
by
show me one.
committee, finance
Show me
committee.
one. Bull.
HSBC, Morty, I'll be specific. HSBC Bank, tens of millions of dollars going into Hunter Biden's accounts, gone through a series of shell companies and distributed to his relatives, including grandchildren, children, uncles, and what have you. It's all in black and white.
Oh,
It's been
if you
published.
have it, I want to see it. And it also might have been.
Just go online and Google HSBC bank accounts in the Finance Committee and Investigation Committee's exhibits. Hunter Biden's bank transfers. It's all online.
You've seen it. You've seen it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
I want to know.
On TV.
I want to know who provided it. Was it
Banks, they
Fox
subpoenaed
News?
the banks, Morty.
Was it Fox News?
It's been Fox News, it's been Newsmax, even CNN has reported on this. These accounts were subpoenaed by the Congressional Committee investigating Hunter, and the banks complied, and they turned him over. Remember, Morty, that I had a big lawsuit against the Chinese counterfeiters that stole my technology, and I hunted them down, got them arrested by the FBI.
No.
And I wrote a book about that.
And I
You know what
understand.
I did? I subpoenaed their bank records, and the Chinese banks, not all of them, but some of them, complied and sent me the transfers. This is exactly what the Congressional Committee did, Morty.
You did the right thing because you had a legitimate case. But I think you have retained the chip on your shoulder against the Chinese, and so you're
Correct.
you're really not the right person when somebody starts off with a chip on their shoulder. You don't test them for their opinion because you know their opinion.
Well, let's say my judgments are based on actual real life experience, which I think is very helpful.
Yeah. Look, nobody said more strongly that Biden stole the election, and they went to court 60 different judges, 61, I think. And not one of the judges, and many of them many of these judges who were appointed by Trump, and not one of them could find a basis to even consider it beyond the most superficial or the most intensive review. So
Well, Morty, you know there was ballot harvesting. You know that was the
I don't know anything. That's true. That's what they say. That's not true. They haven't found any of it.
There were news reports showing hidden cameras in cars with guys who were driving around in nursing homes collecting ballots and having them sign it, and then they checked the box for the candidate they wanted.
That's what you. That's
This on the internet. It's very simple.
That's what you say. There's no proof of that. There's no evidence.
There's live camera action.
Yeah, but
There's live camera recording.
yeah, but you didn't see who they signed for. They might have gone to the nursing homes to get
They just
signatures.
the guy driving the car with 400 ballots said he's checking everyone for Biden. I mean, I don't know what else you need, Morty.
But nobody ever found that. That's you and the
On
Republic.
videotape, Morty. On videotape.
Everything's on videotape, but you're the only one that is privy to it.
It was on TV. Obviously,
I watch
media won't show it, but
I
it was
watch.
on.
I watch everybody good news. I watch Fox. I watch Newsmax. I watch all of. I've never seen one that showed the other.
Have Leonard type in ballot harvesting. It was caught on camera, and you'll see literally over 50 to 60 links to videos actually showing this. It's as simple as typing it in on the internet. Leonard can do that for you.
So why did all of the cases that were brought, the 60 different, why did they all get dismissed without
Because
even?
they didn't feel that the ballot harvesting, the percentage of people that were deceased and wound up filing votes,
That wasn't what they were.
significant enough.
They were asked.
Significant enough to throw the election. And I must tell you, Morty, although I do support Trump, I do not think the election was stolen. I think there was a lot of people
Hey,
that were deceived.
Hooray!
by Biden.
At least you're semi-normal.
Somewhat, not quite, but I must tell you, I think Biden's been a disaster as president. And I quite frankly would tell you that I vote for a trained monkey rather than Biden and Harris. I mean, I think, like the joke about the monkeys throwing darts at the Wall Street Journal and choosing stocks, they do it better than most analysts. I think a monkey running the presidency right now would do better than Biden and Harris. And I know you find Trump offensive, and I understand why you find Trump
Back
offensive.
to my point, why I find him offensive, and also I want to know why Biden is such a terrible president. What has he done so wrong?
The disaster at our southern border, Morty, have you looked at the illegal immigration, the tens of thousands of criminals coming across our border every day? The crime in our streets, the people being murdered in New York, Chicago, California, LA, San Francisco are unlivable cities. Have you seen the disastrous pullout of Afghanistan? Morty, I'm co-chairman of the Navy SEAL Legacy Foundation 9/11 event. I speak to these Special Forces operators all the time. Many of them quit the military because they can't stand working for Biden or the left-wing woke generals that he's supported. We've got transvestites running the Assistant Secretary of Energy who was arrested for stealing women's clothing at airports. You've got that crazy Levine transvestite who's now making policy that young children can make decisions at 7 or 8 years old to change their gender when they don't even know what they want for breakfast when they wake up in the morning. These are permanent, long-term decisions. The healthcare system is a disaster. The economy is a disaster. We have the highest rate of inflation in 40 years, Morty, and you're telling me, what has Biden done wrong? I ask you, what has Biden done right?
Everything.
Name one thing.
Almost everything.
One thing, name it.
No, but you pointed out, I agree with you, the issue of it.
I agree on a lot of things, surprisingly, by the way. We just don't agree on policy. We disagree on the people, but we agree on policy. And the reason why I vote for Trump, even though I agree with you, he's a very offensive person.
Not
No
offensive.
question about it.
Not offensive.
But his
Not offensive.
policy is
Not
better than
offensive.
Biden's.
You're just being nice. He's not offensive.
What is he? Tell me.
He outlined his goal when he gets to be president. Yeah, everybody that's running for president describes their agenda, their platform.
Right.
He says when he gets in, he's going to make all the decisions. He's going to take it away from all of the agencies. And even if the Congress appropriates money for something and he objects to it, he's going to impound the funds. He describes exactly what a dictatorship is. And the guys, and the people like you that love him.
Call that a businessman, not a dictator. Okay?
That's a dictator. Yeah, that's a dictator. Because that's not checks and balances.
Morty, you know why my companies are so profitable? Because I operate as a benevolent dictator. You don't have a democracy as it relates. I listen to everybody, but at the end of the day, the business owner makes the decision. It should be the same way in government. We got too many agencies.
I don't believe you mean that. I don't believe that. I don't believe you believe that we should get rid of democracy.
I think we should have a benevolent dictatorship, Morty. Given all the imbeciles that are running our country right now, he should fire most of the people in the agencies. Half the agencies we've got running this country right now, if you shut them down tomorrow, you wouldn't miss a thing. All they do is spend money recklessly and generate nothing.
I'd miss a lot because businesses, all they care about is profits. They don't care about making the environment better. They don't care about global warming. So took away the regulations and the agencies, they would have a free, a wild ride. They'd make profits like they never made before. So that's nonsense. The agencies serve a purpose. They've been set up for a reason. And
A few of them do, but most of them don't.
healthcare, even though we don't have the healthcare that I would like to see, we're the only advanced country in the world that doesn't have universal coverage for every citizen. It should be a right, just like
The government-run healthcare is a financial disaster. The services, you can't use your own doctor. The delay times in getting to see your doctor, it's the most inefficient model there is. It's
private sector healthcare is greedy, what can I say? They
You
abuse.
have a choice between greedy and completely incompetent. I'd rather go with greedy than incompetent, Morty.
I don't think that.
Government-run systems are disasters.
Maybe you're not old enough yet, but if you go on,
Still a young kid, Morty.
if you go on Medicare, you'll see that government is not disastrous, and without Medicare, old people would be in big trouble. And one of the goals of Trump is to get rid of what he calls Obamacare, Medicare, Medicaid.
Well, Obamacare, yes. Medicare, no. I had never heard him say he wants to get rid of Medicare, but yes, I've heard him say he wants to get rid of Obamacare.
Well, what part of Obamacare? What's the difference?
I think he wants to get rid of all of Obamacare because Obamacare basically socialized the healthcare system. And I got to tell you, Morty, I have 3 close friends who are doctors who, after Obamacare, quit being a doctor. They went into real estate or something else because it wasn't any well worth their time anymore. They couldn't make money being a doctor. They were paying 50% of their gross income to malpractice insurance, and then 1/3 of their money to following all these new regulations. The cost per operation, the cost per visit went down. The payments they get from Medicare, it wasn't even worth their while to see the patients. 3 close friends were doctors, gave up their practice after Obamacare because they figured it just wasn't worth it anymore.
I'll show you something that's very interesting about the private sector. Supposedly the invisible hand corrects everything, the private sector, free markets corrects everything. One of the clearest things we all know is there's an immense shortage of doctors. Wait, nurses, I can't make the same case, because doctors historically, not recently, but traditionally, were one of the highest paid professions.
Yes,
So
you're correct.
based on the free market and based on incentives, the highest salaries are attracting most of the people, just as today they do people to Wall Street because they're the highest paid, and to Silicon Valley because they're the highest paid. That's natural. We put the incentives in by making high salaries. So you'd think there would be such a enormous number of doctors because it pays so much, right? But the private sector and the medical profession makes sure there's not enough, not even enough doctors, but far less than enough. So,
But Morty, here's the problem.
Yeah,
You have Medicare and Obamacare, the doctors can't make any money anymore.
the problem is long before Medicare and for years there's been a shortage of doctors, partially because of malpractice suits they get out of it, but because there's limited capacity. You know, there's a school down in what's the last war we won in Grenada. There's a school in Grenada that's their biggest business. They charge $100,000 a year. They're still up the gazoo because there's so many people who want to be doctors.
Most of the people who go to that school couldn't get into a U.S. medical school. That's why they went to Grenada.
Yeah, but who
I
says
don't want any of them operating on me, Morty.
who says you have to be an A student to be a doctor? That's the criteria. It's not. There's other towns that
B students go to Grenada and Mexico.
in Russia, they think doctors should be like good plumbers and good carpenters and good technicians, so they know what to do. And today, every doctor, first of all, in the old days, they used to go to their own brain and their own experience and figure out what's wrong with the patient.
Right.
Now they immediately go to their computer and they put in all the symptoms that the patient says.
And the computer tells them what to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
And that's much better because not every doctor has every experience with every disease. So, but let me get back to the fact is,
Yeah, let's get back to the presidential issue. Morty. Tell
but
me.
I'm going to finish with doctors, why there's a shortage. Because controlled, you can't get, even if you graduate now as doctor, you can't get, there's not enough residency openings. So it's very controlled to keep the price high, to make people pay more, and it shouldn't be that way. When I was a kid, doctors went into medical treatment to helping people because they were dedicated. The doctor came in the middle of the night to my house, and he charged $2. And he said to my mother, if you don't have it now, you pay me when you have it. They were really dedicated. Now you try to get a doctor to come in the middle of the night.
Not going to happen.
You'll die. You'll die. You'll die for years before you get one. So how
Morty, tell me about the other presidential candidates. Who do you like besides Biden and Trump?
how come the free market doesn't adjust that?
Well, listen, Morty, I can opine about that, but we'll spend the rest of this show just talking about doctors rather than presidents. Why don't you tell me who you like better as an alternative to Trump and Biden? Do you like Kennedy? Do you like Vivek Ramaswamy? Who do you like?
I hate Kennedy. Do you ever hear Kennedy?
I've heard him. I don't hate him. I think he's much more likable than Joe Biden.
He's the worst anti-Semite. You don't.
No, I don't see that. No way.
He's
What makes you say that?
Because I hear him say, I saw him on television.
He says COVID was.
He said COVID was a Jewish plot and Jews didn't avoid the Jews avoided getting it. He said
So avoided getting the shots. The Orthodox
getting the disease. You
I
might,
don't think he said the Jews creating COVID. I think he said that the Orthodox Jews refused to get shots.
you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. The fact is that I'm telling you what he said, and if you listen to him, there's no way. He's not normal. There's no way.
So let's talk about Vivek Ramaswamy. Let's talk about, U.S. Senator running. Scott. What do you think about some of the Republican candidates? Anybody there that you like?
I dislike Scott.
Scott?
I
Very
dis-
good. He seems like a very godly
I
person.
dislike Scott tremendously, much as
Why?
just as I dislike Thomas even
Are you
though,
against black people, Morty?
no, I'm very much in favor of black.
I was the only white guy on my wrestling team, Morty, and let me tell you, my best friends to this day were the guys who were on my wrestling team from high school. They're great people. I
Good.
think Tim Scott's a good guy. Why don't you like Tim?
I don't like his values. I don't like his being against everything that's good for the lowest class, for the most vulnerable.
But he rose from the lower class.
The marginalized, it doesn't matter. And he should be more interested in taking care of them.
All right, how about the entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, the young guy? Look at him.
The sad thing about the Republicans is they don't care about the marginalized, the most vulnerable, the poorest, those in poverty.
I disagree. I think the opposite. I think the Democrats have been placating the African Americans, the Hispanic Americans, and the poor, and keeping them in programs that keep them poor, as opposed to focusing on opportunity and job creation that would lift them up. And there are African Americans and Hispanic Americans are leaving the Democratic Party in droves now because they realize it's the party of slavery. It's not the party of supporting the poor people.
How is it? Jesus, you cut me off. I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry, Morty, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's not important.
We were talking about the poor and how the Democrats.
Oh, you said the word you used the word placating. How are they placating the poor people if the major cuts?
They're throwing them into social welfare programs that don't
The
lift them
biggest
up.
the biggest social welfare are the tax cuts for the wealthiest. That's the biggest, and the subsidies for the biggest companies.
Morty, I sent you a copy of my check. So I pay millions of dollars a year in taxes.
So you're
my check. You know
a
that.
good guy.
I'm a wealthy guy who's happy and honored to pay his taxes.
That-
I've paid about $20 million in taxes in the last several years, a couple of million of which you've got copies of my check. I must tell you, Morty, yes, there are people who cheat. Yes, there are people who don't pay. But I must tell you, keeping
Warren
welfare
Warren Buffett, who we all admire, says it's outrageous that I pay a lower tax than my
secretary.
No. So you see how that we're placating
The
the
president of Amazon pays nothing. And Amazon, a multi-billion-dollar company with offshore corporations, pays zero.
And
It's not fair.
and
I agree with you.
and for years,
That I agree with you.
yes,
100%.
Apple was not paying taxes, and Amazon was, they moved all operations that were profitable offshore.
So change the tax law, Marty. That's what we got to do. Eliminate the loopholes.
No.
I agree with you.
You can't change the tax laws if
I
they.
think I like the fact that I'm writing checks for millions of dollars for taxes, and Jeff Bezos and the president of Apple Computer are not. I don't like it any more than you do.
So,
I'm with you.
well, the Republicans,
100% with you, Morty.
I've got news for you. The Republicans got in 2016. Their biggest accomplishments, they rave about, is that they cut $2 trillion, a little less than $2 trillion in taxes. About 90% of it went to the top 10%. How do you like that? And that doesn't help the economy
I
at all.
don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair.
And it doesn't help the economy at all. If
I
you
also don't think it's fair that the Democratic government's spending trillions of dollars on things that don't help the common man. And what they're doing is we have the educational system that's one of the worst in the developed world.
you're saying
60% of our students in inner cities who graduate high school can't even read or do math at a third grade level. You want to help the poor, education is a universal method of lifting them up. And the teachers union that's tied to the Democratic Party want to indoctrinate our kids, not educate them. The best way to lift people out of poverty is education, Morty. And we're not spending trillions of dollars on a system that's failing us. I would fire the teachers union tomorrow like Reagan fired the air traffic controllers back in the 70s.
it all
There's no
begins.
way we can continue this.
It
That's
all-
why we have poverty, Marty.
First of all, you're saying everything that they do for the poor is terrible. It's terrible that they give
Keeping
food.
them poor, yes, by definition.
By
If they
giving
do
them-
everything for the poor,
them-
then keeping them poor, they fail, Morty.
by giving them by giving them food stamps, they're destroying them.
I'd rather give them a future. I'd rather give them a career. I'd rather give them an education where they don't need food stamps. They don't need welfare. They have a good life for their children.
The minimum wage should be a job that gives you a decent level of existence. No, I'm saying we have to help those at the bottom, not those at the top. If you give $2 trillion to the people at the top and the top 10%, you're not helping the economy at all. Because if you give Bill Gates another 100 million or another million,
It's not going to make a difference.
it's not spending it unless there's some investment that's compelling, you know. And there's no in capitalism, there's no compelling investment unless there's demand. So if you give it to the lowest classes, as Keynes understood, they have a propensity to spend 100% and even more if they could borrow. So
Food, clothing, appliances, rent for their homes. Yes, right.
Man, they created the demand. And then look, twice, I don't know if you're familiar with this. I'll give you the most simple example, the most clear example. Apple for years stored billions of dollars in Ireland because Ireland said if you move your headquarters, your main office, your main operations, your financial operations to Ireland, zero tax. Zero.
Zero tax.
So they moved it, and you know what they did? They set up a subsidiary to which they sold all of their intellectual property. And then they paid that subsidiary to use that intellectual property.
They transferred twice all their profit to Ireland. Exactly.
But let me tell you how they did that. They did it by paying a royalty or a fee for use of the intellectual property that formerly they had controlled in the U.S. So they did a survey of a statistical analysis of what the average employee in the United States for Apple produced, and it was something like, I'm not sure the exact number, but it was something like $400,000 or $500,000 per employee. They had far fewer employees in Ireland because they didn't need employees. They were just supervising what was turned over to them. And the average employee in Ireland was producing $4.5 million. So it showed you. So then they accumulated so many billions. So they said, we'll bring it back to the United States, but give us a break. Why do you deserve a break? You moved it, you evaded taxes, not you avoided taxes, which is legal. But they literally evaded taxes. Everybody was setting up subsidiaries in Ireland and doing mergers with companies that had already set up businesses in Ireland, and we're losing enormous taxes. So billions and billions were accumulating, literally trillions, in those countries. Not only Ireland, but other countries that gave that benefit. So they finally said, we'll bring it back if you give us special treatment. Right. Why should you why should we do that? So they said, well, if you let us bring it back, we'll invest in our companies, we'll grow our companies, we'll hire employees. And so it sounded good, so they cut it to 10% when the initial, what they would have had to pay was 35% or something. That was the prevailing tax, corporate tax. So they brought it back. Did they invest in machinery, equipment, infrastructure?
They're making everything in China. What were they investing in?
No. What they make here, they didn't invest because the only time they invest is when there's demand. I'll point out to you that even when interest rates were zero, so you'd think they'd invest a lot. The only time they invest, you don't invest when you're operating at 65% of capacity. There's no reason for you to invest. During the time when interest rates were 18%, during Carter and the beginning of Reagan, 18% was the government treasuries. You could get 18%. And you think, well, at that rate, nobody's going to borrow. No, they were borrowing because there was big demand. So the thing that drives investment is demand. So you know what they did with the money they got back? They increased their dividends. They bought back shares of the company. And then, so they learned that with Bush the father. He cut it for them. Or maybe it was Bush the son, I forget which. It was one of the Bushes, President Bush. So recently, about 4 years ago, I think, give or take, they did it again. Hello, we lost Brett. Brett, come back. A few years ago, they did it again. They said, if you let us bring the money back, we'll create jobs. And they were worried at that time about jobs during the COVID and the pandemic. So we were very interested in getting more jobs, and we'll expand our businesses and so forth. So they let him bring it back at 10%. Again, why you're so willing to allow a dictatorship and the end of democracy. There's a reason why the Constitution set up checks and balances.
Right.
3 divisions: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial.
Correct.
And they balance each other. Supposedly, they're supposed to
Do
balance.
you think we have a dictatorship right now with Biden arresting his political opponent, using the FBI as a tool to go after his political opponent, to make unilateral decisions on
You're talking about
eliminating student loans on his own? I think right now Biden's operating like a socialist dictator.
what are you talking about? He was checked. He tried to do it, and he was checked by the judiciary. He's not doing anything unilaterally.
Biden's been overturned by the Supreme Court 5 times already in the last
Well, that shows that there's checks and balances. That's good.
Not with him using the FBI as a private agency to
Doesn't-
go after his political
He's
opponents.
not-
I disagree.
He's
Why
not-
isn't Hunter Biden in jail
I wanna-
and indicted rather than Donald Trump? I'd like to know.
That's a stupid question. Because the
Okay.
Justice
Tell
Department,
me why. Tell me why.
because they haven't found anything that gives them a loss, a basis for claim.
Hunter Biden's one of the biggest criminals in U.S. history. He's been selling access to his father. He gets $80,000 a month working for Burisma. He had no understanding or experience in the oil business. He has millions of dollars wired to him by the People's Republic of China. $3 million. It's in the news on both Fox and CNN from the mayor of Moscow's wife. Tell me, why isn't Hunter Biden in jail or indicted and Donald Trump is? I don't understand.
When Trump was in, why didn't his Justice Department get what's his name, Biden?
He was too busy trying to run the country and have a positive economy, a low inflation, and also United States being the #1 oil producer in the world. He was not focused on attacking his opponents. He was focused on growing the country. And quite frankly, as much as I dislike how Trump behaves sometimes, I would welcome him back to run this country, because right now the country is a giant mess. Our southern border is a disaster. The pullout of Afghanistan was shameful. Biden half the time is shaking hands with the visible people that are not even on stage. He falls down all over the place. He's a cognitive mess. He doesn't even remember who he is or where he is. He has no business being president.
When Trump was in, he made promises, right?
He kept it. Israel now has Jerusalem
not-
as the capital. The first president in history
That's the only-
kept that promise.
The only one that, yeah, that's the only one, and that he did the right thing, because for years and years,
Thank you for saying that, Morty.
Congress
Did the right thing.
Congress approved it. Every time the platform of both parties had it, we're going to move the
Embassy to Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. And every time they were pushed, they said, well, now it's not the right time. And the right time is when you do it. And that, to Trump's
He
credit,
also created the Abraham Accords, and he actually brought some of the former enemies of Israel into peace talks that resulted in peace accords. Jared Kushner did a great job. Donald Trump did a great job. And by the way, he didn't orchestrate this disastrous pullout of Afghanistan. And we had 1/10 the illegal immigration at our southern border, Morty.
Biden, I would make that my number one asset that I did, that I got us out of Afghanistan. He's letting
Not the way he did. He left behind $80 billion of our weapons to our mortal enemies. No, not that way, Morty.
we like that
You
because
would have done better, Morty. I
no,
know.
we don't mind leaving it because it's more business.
You're talking about anti-Semites, Morty? We armed the greatest anti-Semitic, the Taliban. We armed them with 80 billion of our weapons we left behind. How about filling up a bunch of C-130 aircraft with all the weapons and flying it back to the U.S. or to Israel, but not leave it in the hands of people who are dedicated to murdering Christians?
What are you talking about? The Taliban are not anti-Semites other than every
They
other.
just want to kill all the Jews, but they're not anti-Semites, Morty. Come on, let's be real.
I never heard the Taliban being
Oh, Morty, they want to destroy the state of Israel more than the Palestinians.
Never heard of it. Where do you
Absolutely.
show me one place where they said that?
Oh, God, I could show you hundreds. All you need to go is go online.
I'm only asking for one. Anyway,
One specifically, several of their imams said that our mission is to destroy the infidels, which includes the state of Israel and the great Satan, the United States. How's about that?
that's not Semitic because they say that we want to destroy the Christians, we want to destroy anybody that doesn't turn Muslim. You know, there was one group.
Who do you think they're murdering now over there?
ISIS.
They're rounding up people who are Christians, killing them.
ISIS took one town, one municipality in Iraq, and told them either you convert to Muslim,
Right, or die.
or die, or you could leave and take whatever you could carry out in your hands.
Okay.
So some of them converted, some of them left with nothing. They left their houses, they left all their belongings, but only what you could carry out. And
So is that not hatred for Christians and Jews, or what is it?
and many of them were killed because they refused to convert. But that's not Taliban. That's all of the Muslims have that. There's hardly.
No, I have Muslim friends one of which, Mahmoud al-Assar, lives next door to me, who is wonderful to my family. In fact, by the way,
I'm not.
my wife and I, we left the country.
I'm not saying.
Our children stayed at their home and they babysitted them. I don't say all Muslims are bad. No way.
I'm not saying every individual.
No,
But-
but the Taliban and ISIS want to murder Christians and Jews. They
Look,
are terrorists.
the
They're
Mu-
they're the ones who blew up the World Trade Center. They want to murder Americans, Morty, and they've done that.
The
And I'm
Mus-
sure you've seen the video of the
Muslims-
two towers falling. That's
Muslims-
what they do.
Brett, the Muslims are equal opportunity because they kill Muslims. What do you call it? What are the two kind of Muslims? The
Shiite and Sunni.
Shiite and Sunnis. So the Shiites are killing the
So
Sunnis.
Morty, when I used to compete in karate, I have 2 operations done on my neck. You can still see the scars. You know who fixed me? You know my surgeon, Dr. Nizam Razak, a Muslim. He's become a very good friend, and quite frankly, he saved my life. I could have been paralyzed.
I'm
I used
asking
to compete in
that-
full contact karate.
That
So I
accounts.
must tell you, he's an American Muslim doctor. He did a tremendous job for me. Not only that,
Maybe
two of
that.
my best friends he did spinal surgery on. He saved their life.
Maybe
What
that.
I'm saying to you is,
Maybe that accounts for your brain damage.
what? Maybe. Who knows? I think getting hit in the head too many times when I was in the ring probably
We're
did.
denying that. only people, the only religion that I know of that kills its own every single day are
Yeah.
the Muslims. The Shiites, all because one follows one nephew of Muhammad and the
The
other,
other nephew, yes, yes.
and also their view is that if the world doesn't turn to Muslim, they deserve to be killed. Everybody, not then. So they don't just pick on Jews. They
But
pick.
I don't believe that's a unilateral belief of 100% of the Muslims. I think there's a big percentage of people who are engaged in ISIS or Taliban who absolutely feel that way, Morty. But I must tell you, I've been very fortunate to know Nizam Razak. I've been very fortunate to have a neighbor, Mahmoud al-Assar, who's a Palestinian Muslim who has invited my family over for Ramadan, and we've invited them over for Passover. We've had very good relations.
You've been done nonsensical, because not every German was in favor of Hitler. That's
Right.
that never all. So
Right.
there's a lot of
So
wonderful.
we agree on that. We agree on that.
Yeah, but that doesn't say that overwhelmingly they're not biased against Christians and Jews and other religions, because that theme is everybody's supposed to be Muslim. That's they say that in the Quran. So but anyway,
Let's talk about the presidents, Morty. I think you must have somebody other than Biden and Trump that you must like. Tell me who he is or she.
oh no, I want to tell you the three promises. You know, I said they
Okay.
were platforms. This,
Please.
this was a platform of not that he ever has any platform, right? He has no platform.
You're talking about Trump.
His only platform is the minute I get in, we're going to put the Bidens in jail. We're going to put Hillary in jail. We're
I
going
would too, for that matter. I would do the same, but go ahead. Go
to.
ahead.
Here's what he promised. He
Please.
promised to balance the budget. Instead, he added the biggest during any administration, almost $8 trillion to the deficit.
How much of that was COVID relief, Morty?
I'm just telling you what he
Please, go ahead. Okay.
he said he was going to repeal Obamacare. He didn't repeal Obamacare. He
Okay.
didn't build the wall and have Mexico pay for it. He built 47 miles of the wall.
Correct.
So these were the three promises he made, and he
He promised to make U.S. #1 petroleum nation in the world. He did it. He promised to make Jerusalem the capital of Israel. He did it. He kept a southern border that didn't have millions of people illegally crossing. He did it. And by the way, the rest of the wall could have been built. He did 3/4 of it, but Biden refused to build it because it was against the progressive socialist members' interests. So
Brett,
all I can tell
Brett,
you is, yes, he didn't
Brett,
keep every promise, but he kept most of them, Morty.
Brett, 47 miles of wall is most of it. He built 40.
It's more than half was done, Morty. There was about, quite frankly, not even 30 or so miles they needed to finish, and all the steel was there. There are videos of the steel sitting there rusting because the Biden administration wouldn't install it.
Brett, during this conversation we're having, you
Yes.
have more inside information than the CIA.
I've been to Texas, Morty. I've been to Texas. I've seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah, and all the statements you make,
Yeah.
you know more about what's out there than anybody else.
Not everybody else, but I got to tell you, Morty, I've physically been to the border. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's a disaster. And you can see it too if you go online and see it for yourself.
Did the Mexicans pay for it?
No, they didn't do that. And that's a promise Trump made that he didn't fulfill. I agree with you on that point. They should pay for it. And not only that, the Mexicans should realize that if they continue to allow these people to come to our border illegally, we're going to cut off trade. We're going to stop all their trucks importing goods from Mexico to the United States. And I promise you, Morty, that illegal activity would stop the minute we put in our sanctions. But Biden is a mindless, decrepit old man who's not doing his job and letting Mexicans steal our country, create even crimes against children, using them in sex trafficking, bringing in fentanyl that are murdering our children. The border is a disaster, and Biden's doing nothing about it.
Make statements that are so
True. true. Morty, it's statistically true. We have more illegal immigration now in the history of our country under the Biden administration.
We have the highest inflation. We have the lowest inflation of any other country in the rest of the world.
Morty, we have the highest inflation in 40 years in U.S. history.
We're
talking about U.S. history now. And Morty, our interest rates are up to 5%. They were 1.5% 2 years ago.
That's because of Trump. Trump said, put a tariff on.
Biden's president for the last 2 years, Morty. It all happened during Biden's administration.
He put a tariff on Chinese goods. The minute he did that, I said, you're going to have inflation. Because
we should put a moratorium on Chinese goods. We should be funding our enemies.
Everything in Walmart, and Home Depot, and Target, and Lowe's, all came from China.
Let's make it in America now. Why don't we make it in America now?
Why?
Why? Because if, God forbid, we got in a war with China, we wouldn't have anything.
We're against capitalism. That's
not capitalism. That's funding a dictatorship, communist dictatorship.
The whole idea, it used to be before Adam Smith, everybody was in agriculture. They grew as much as they needed, maybe a little.
Grow our own food in the United States. We should make our own products in the
United
United
States. Then he said, every man acting in his own self-interest, in his own selfish interest.
That's Thomas Malthus, the beehive theory. I'm aware of it.
No, that's not that. That's Adam Smith. He said Malthus is the reason that we economic.
Do you agree with Adam Smith, or do you disagree with him, Morty?
I absolutely agree with him.
Okay.
So every man, he's encouraging every man.
I think it's in our best interest to make products here in America, not in China. That's what my interest says.
That's not the capitalism, because Adam Smith said every man acting in his own selfish interest to make the most money, to get the most.
So why do you approve of Biden's socialist policies?
Jesus Christ.
Go ahead. Sorry, Morty. Go ahead.
That's basic. Adam Smith. First of all, Malthus was a guy that said that that's why economics is called the misery science. Misery, or it's another synonym for misery, because what? Do you remember? Misery of science. Because
I think Churchill said that socialism is the system of misery.
Malthus said that the ability to grow food increases arithmetically. The population will grow geometrically. So inevitably, most of the population will die of starvation. That's Malthus. It's not misery. But anyway, that's why economics is called a kind of Malthus. But Adam Smith came up with this idea that was unheard of. He said, just let every man work, be most incentivized, so you'll get what you want at the lowest price, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we did with China. We let them make money, but it was best for us. We got it at the cheapest price. So Walmart and Lowe's and Home Depot and Target and a dollar store all were selling that merchandise to the people at the lowest level of society, the poorest, the most vulnerable. That's where they shop. And after Trump put the tariffs on, every one of those prices went up. Why do we have to be? We got enough work. He said, to create jobs here. We got enough work for the next 100 years to keep everybody fully employed if we work on the infrastructure, if we build new bridges.
So why are so many poor people, Morty, still poor, if that's the case? Why is that?
Because we don't.
If we have more work in the next 100 years. Why do we still have so many people unemployed and poor?
You didn't hear the end of what I said.
Please, go ahead.
We could have everybody working. And the best place to have apprenticeships, because I don't know if you realize, when young people go to get a job, they say, do you have any experience? They said, no.
You're right. I agree with you 100%, Morty.
Come back when you have experience.
Yes.
So the already have, and new ones. We have enough work for the next 100 years and keep everybody occupied. There would be zero unemployment because it would be a great training program for people to work on electricity, on plumbing, on carpentry, on every form of building. And we could hire unemployed engineers and draftsmen and even guys that now work at Goldman Sachs that have brains, that do budgeting and so forth. That's what we should do the jobs, not get back the jobs to make the cockamamie things that the Japanese always and the Chinese made for us, that you wind them up and they get destroyed.
Well, Morty, I can tell you something. I own a construction company and a real estate development company, and we find it near impossible to hire masons, drywallers, electricians, and plumbers. You know what? This generation now is so indoctrinated, so lazy, so sold on the fact that the government owes them a living. They want to sit in their mother's couch and watch video games all day and collect a check from Joe Biden. It's shameful.
I agree.
You can't find people who want to work.
I agree with you.
All my subcontractors are having problems hiring.
I just said what we could do to solve that.
Tell me.
By
Tell
doing
me,
the
Morty.
private sector, let the private sector make a lot of money building these things.
But when the government's sending checks for people to sit at home and do nothing, you erode that probability.
They have no jobs that give them a living wage. That's why. So if we did,
Masons and electricians are making $20 to $30 an hour.
so where are they getting trained?
Vocational training is the way to go.
Where are they getting trained? I agree with you. So I'm saying set up a system where they train under the government's auspices by building roads, and you train them on the job.
And by the way, union electricians in New York City are getting upwards of $150 an hour. Just so you know. I used to hire the IBEW Local 3 to do work for me when I was working in Times Square. They're getting $150 an hour.
Why don't you address what I just said?
Ask me the question again.
All the masons, all the plumbers, all the people that you can hire right now, we could train them in this process of turning over to private industry to build all the. Don't you agree we need to rebuild the?
On that point, I agree with you, Morty. The answer is yes, you're right. The
Chinese,
answer is yes, you are right.
We have to learn from the Chinese because they learned from us about capitalism, even though they called communism. There's no communism in China. It's capitalism.
Well, in their government, there's communism, I assure you. It's a dictatorship, Morty.
It's dictatorship. That's not communism. But they have millionaires and billionaires, but what they do is the government spends the money to improve society, and they have the best roads, the best highways. Years ago, when I went, there was no roads.
Do you know China's an economic disaster right now? I just had my friend Martin George, who's one of my tenants in my building, speaks Chinese fluently. He went to China. The whole country's on lockdown. They've got whole cities that are built that are empty, that are disasters. The unemployment's at record high. China's an economic disaster right now, Morty. And one of the reasons why they want to start a war with Taiwan is they want to take over the computer chip business to get billions and billions of dollars worth of revenue. China is not working. It's not a model we should follow. The people were locked up in their homes for months, imprisoned in their own neighborhoods. And not only that, the economy's in a shambles. Their real estate market has collapsed. They've got entire cities that are empty and vacant. So, Marty, that's not a model we should learn from.
Hi, Brett, Taiwan is part of China.
Taiwan's not part of China. Taiwan is an independent country that wants to remain independent.
Chiang Kai-shek, who was a corrupt leader at the end of the war.
Founded it. You're correct.
No, took off with his wife, and they set up a new country. It's not a new country. It's part of China. So it's not our business to interfere.
Well, the Taiwanese don't think that way. I've been to Taipei, Taiwan many times, and all my former suppliers there don't think they're Chinese. They think they're Taiwanese, and they want to remain independent from China.
I got news for you. The biggest investors in China of any country in the world is Taiwan.
That I agree with. You're correct.
So they like
You're
China.
right.
They like China. it's
And they like their independence as well. Okay.
no, it's like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico likes their independence. It's stupid. They should be delighted that they could become a state and part of the United States. People have bad ideas, but maybe they don't like the idea of being under a dictatorship. So I don't deny them that privilege.
Okay. On that point, we agree.
But also,
We agree.
so it's not an overwhelming vote in favor of being independent or.
Morty, do you want to be a citizen of China? Yes or no?
Why would I want to be a citizen of China?
Well, that's exactly how the Taiwanese think.
wanna
They
be-
don't want to be a citizen of
wanna
China.
be-
Neither do we.
I want to be a citizen of the United States because I love the United States.
Amen. Me too.
But not under a Trump dictatorship. That's what I want to do. A
So
dictatorship.
you'd rather be led by Biden's incompetence than Trump's arrogance.
I don't.
understand.
I think. Look, contrary to what Trump said, he said, you heard him probably. He said, "I'm the greatest president ever," maybe excluding George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Then he said, even
Well, he's
including.
got no shortage of arrogance. I'm sure about that.
Yeah, he said, even including them, he's the greatest president.
Right,
If you
right.
ask the liberals, they'll say the worst president in the history of America is Trump. So
The
that's,
liberals and the progressives definitely would say that. I agree with that.
and I agree with that too.
So, Morty, how did you become a liberal? What happened?
I'm not a liberal.
Your kids think you're a liberal.
Because I voted both ways. I've always been eclectic. When I was very young, I was very pro Roosevelt because
Right.
every Jewish person thought Roosevelt was the biggest hero because he took us out of the Depression. They didn't realize how objectionable he was to the Jews that arrived here from Germany to try to get into the country. I
He
don't know.
didn't bomb the railroads leading to the concentration camps.
Well,
He was
that-
given
that-
that opportunity, he chose not to.
That I don't know. It's not like today that we have full knowledge.
My father was in World War II. He shot plenty of the SS at some of those camps,
Right.
and he knows for sure that the railroads, if they would have been bombed by U.S. aircraft, you would have saved probably a couple of million people, John. I'm telling you this, Morty.
Well, our job is not to get into internal affairs of countries.
But as you were saying, you thought Roosevelt was a great president.
No, but there was a ship, I don't remember if you know, the St. Louis,
Okay.
in the United States, full of German Jews.
Yes.
It approached a lot of countries. No country would take them in. Not even South America that took in the Nazis after the Second World War.
Correct.
would take them in. So they wound up going back, the St. Louis one, going back to Germany because that's the only country that would take
And they
them,
were all murdered.
and they were all
Yeah.
murdered.
You're
So,
right.
so the Jews,
I mean,
the Jews in America, and he had Jewish cabinet members, Morgenthau and one other one, that asked him and begged him, Roosevelt, to do something, and he wouldn't do it. So, but we weren't aware. It's not like today. You know how much news we got when I was a kid? 15 minutes at night, get a heater or something.
yeah, but
And-
Morty, the leaders of the world, including Roosevelt, knew exactly what was going on. They knew about the concentration camps. They knew about the mass executions. They knew about the crematoriums, and they stood by and did nothing.
That's a new program. I don't want to get into that. The reason
Okay.
the reason I mentioned it is I was a very strong Democrat, a very liberal. Then, as I got older, I became anti-welfare, anti all the things, because I
Okay.
believe that. Why give people money for nothing? Why you're
Right.
discouraging? I believe in teach a man to fish, so you take care of him for a lifetime.
If you give him a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach him to fish, he eats for a
Right.
lifetime. I agree. Yes.
Unless he doesn't like fish.
Maybe he likes gefilte fish, Morty.
No, then he doesn't. He doesn't even eat
You
for
ever
a
catch
fish.
gefilte fish, Morty?
Gefilte never caught on as bagels caught on like crazy. But gefilte fish didn't catch on. Anyway, it's great talking to you. We've been off the
Same
air.
here, Morty.
We've been off the,
Listen, we love to fight with each other. It's our exercise for the day. You're an inspiration, Morty. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have had my start in life. I'm forever grateful for your leadership, your inspiration. You make things happen. You made a difference in my life and hundreds of other entrepreneurs. You're a great man, even though we disagree with each other sometimes. I love you. You're the
you're
best.
a good human being. You pay your taxes. You do everything right. If everybody was like you, we wouldn't even need regulations. But
Well, you don't want everybody to be crazy like me. We'd have chaos, Morty.
well, you're very complimentary, and you say I'm an inspiration. I want to tell you, you're an expiration. At the end of the program, I'm expired.
You win, Morty. You win.
I never want to win against you. I love you.
Zagazund. Zagazund.
I'm sure because you're an intelligent guy and you're smart and you're aware, I'm telling you, within the next year or so, the next 2 years for sure, you're going to realize what a disaster Trump could. He was my best friend. He used to introduce me.
I remember you talking about him to
He
me.
was the nicest guy, because like everything else, he exaggerates. He used to say, Morty Davis, the greatest guy, the biggest guy on Wall Street. I liked it,
Yeah.
So I liked him, and and he was very friendly and upbeat, and then he went from supporting Hillary to
Hillary was at his wedding, Morty. Hillary was at his wedding.
yeah, and Bill Clinton he supported, and he was pro-choice, and he was what else is there? He was for universal health care.
Yep.
He wasn't so Christian as he's become. So, I guess all these politicians are the same. They're most.
Morty, honestly, we have to respect the beliefs of our Christian brethren here.
I
I have many Christian friends, and I have to tell you, they are feeling threatened by Biden's bringing transvestites and drag queens to our schools and having drag queen story hours or stripper shows for kids that are just too young. They want to protect the culture of the United States, and they want to protect their beliefs. And I think Christians has every right to be protesting in schools right now. In fact, I protest as a Jew right alongside my Christian brethren.
I'm with you on that. Nobody's more supportive of Israel than the evangelists.
Absolutely. John Hagee is the greatest supporter of Israel in the United States. And Reverend Hagee at Cornerstone Church, I had the honor of meeting. I sat in his church, and I agree with you 100%.
Not necessarily because they love Israel or the Jews. You know what their motivation is? It says the second coming of Jesus won't happen until the Jews control all of Israel.
But for that's like we as proposing the Mashiach coming. We're waiting for the Mashiach. It's probably the same thing.
Let me tell you something. I don't care what their motives, what anybody's motive. If somebody gives charity, a lot of people say, oh, you know why he gives charity? Because he has a big ego and he wants to show off. If he wants to show off, at least he's doing a good thing.
Good thing. Agreed.
So Hagee is doing a good thing. Whatever his ulterior motives are, he's doing a good thing. I'm happy with that.
So, Morty, I agree with you on that point.
My producer says, say goodbye.
Time to get rid of me, Morty. Have a great day. You're the best. I love you.
I always enjoy your visit.
You're a brave man letting me on your show, Morty. I must tell you that.
Whenever I get on a show with you, we cover about 5% of what we decided to discuss. God bless you. I love you.
God bless you, Morty.
I want to get to your intelligence. Because you got more inside information than the CIA and the FBI and the Justice Department.
But not the Mossad.